Just days after the Titanic sank, a Canadian morgue ship was dispatched to pick up the bodies. The sailors aboard the ship had the grim duty of pulling hundreds of frozen bodies out of the cold and unruly waters. Among the dead plucked out of the Atlantic was an infant boy. John Snow Jr., one of those aboard the morgue ship that day, told the Halifax Herald that the young boy came floating toward him with his face upturned. It was one of the most horrible things he had ever seen. In 2008, the U.S. Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory in Maryland made a positive ID. The boy was Sidney Leslie Goodwin, 19 months old. Number 9. Message from a doomed passenger. A team of researchers is attempting to unravel a mystery from over 100 years ago. They have in their possession a letter which they believe was written by a young girl on the Titanic the evening before it sank. The message was allegedly discovered buried in the sand in the Bay of Fundy in New Brunswick, Canada, and was dated April 13, 1912. It was written in French and signed by Mathilde Lefebvre, who at the time was only 13 years old. Translated into English, the letter says, "I'm throwing this bottle into the sea in the middle of the Atlantic. We are due to arrive in New York in a few days. If anyone finds it, tell the Lefebvre family in Leuven." Thanks to historical records, we know this young girl did indeed exist, and she was a real passenger on the Titanic. Number 8. The Mystery Ship. The Titanic may not have been alone when it sank. A mysterious ship was spotted within view of the rapidly sinking Titanic, but never made any attempt to help. The ship, which was witnessed by multiple survivors, purposely moved away from the scene of the disaster and sailed off into the night as if it hadn't seen a thing. In the months following the horrific tragedy, the SS Californian was accused of being the mystery traitor. If it wasn't the SS Californian, then which ship left the Titanic and its passengers to their cruel fate? That's the riddle nobody's ever been able to solve. It wasn't the SS Californian because when the wreckage of the Titanic was found in 1985, it was clear the Californian had been about 20 miles away. There must have been another ship close enough to save some passengers, but unwilling to do anything. Number 7. The Mirage. An expert believes they have just discovered what really caused the Titanic to sink. Yes, it hit an iceberg, but now it looks like we might have a reason as to why. On the night of April 14th, nobody saw the iceberg straight ahead of the Titanic until it was too late. Ever since, there has been a lot of speculation as to how the iceberg was missed. How did not a single person spot the giant block of ice until the boat was already directly on it? Tim Malton, a historian from Britain, spent 6 years digging through survivor accounts of the disaster looking for the truth. What he discovered is that the ship likely sank because of an optical phenomenon called a mirage. This supposed mirage prevented the crew from seeing the iceberg, resulting in over 1,500 deaths. Number 6. The Lost Locket. In April of 2022, the Titanic Museum attraction in Branson, Missouri, unveiled a lost locket from the Titanic. This small piece of jewelry is worth roughly $250,000. It was initially recovered from the vest pocket of Isidor Straus when his remains were pulled from the sea. Isidor Straus was a Jewish German immigrant and the co-founder of Macy's department store in 1888. After this locket was found in Isidor's vest, it was handed over to the Strauss family and remained in their possession until now. Number 5. Wreckage in 8K. The ocean exploration team with Ocean Gate Expeditions went on a voyage to the bottom of the sea and filmed the Titanic in a way it's never been filmed before. They captured the ghostly wreckage in all its glory. By using the newest cameras and the most advanced technology, they were able to find bits and pieces of the structure that nobody had seen before. For example, they filmed the crane that was used for deploying the massive 15-ton anchor on the deck of the ship. They were able to get sharp details of every single piece of the ship. They saw where the decay had started eating away at the metal. They even found the boilers that hit the ocean floor when the ship snapped in half. Number 4. The Hero's Whistle. Harold Lowe has gone down in history as one of the real heroes of the Titanic disaster. Harold was in charge of lifeboat number 14 and spent every last ounce of energy he had paddling through the frigid waters looking for survivors. Harold was a natural leader. He gathered all the lifeboats together that he could. redistributed the survivors into a flotilla, and then used his own lifeboat to search for all the survivors he could find. He was one of only 2 men who went back to where the ship had sank, hoping to save lives. Number 3. Microbes and Decay. In 2019, explorers with the DSV limiting factor made 5 dives to the wreckage of the Titanic and concluded that the ship is in a rapid state of deterioration. The discovery wasn't that surprising since the ship has been submerged for over 100 years. Patrick LaHaye, one of the expedition members and the owner of Triton Submarines, said it was fascinating to see the Titanic being consumed by the ocean. Divers witnessed the Titanic being returned to its elemental form, every surface of metal in the midst of being rapidly consumed. They also discovered the famous ship is now home to a diverse number of sea creatures and is covered in microbes eating its hull. Sadly, the Titanic is in the final stages of its death. Number 2. SOS Signals. On April 15, 1972, Lloyd Detmer, the radio operator on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, picked up a very bizarre SOS signal. Through his headphones, Lloyd heard an indistinct, scratchy voice requesting help for the passengers and crew of the Titanic. The voice said it was in the middle of sinking. The signal was picked up in 1918, 1924, 1930, and again every 6 years. It also appeared that each radio operator had heard the voice of Captain Edward Smith, the first and last captain of the Titanic. Number 1. The Titanic Plot. When it comes to the sinking of the Titanic, almost everyone unanimously agrees it was an accident. Late in the evening on April 14, 1912, the RMS Titanic plowed into an iceberg and sank. Over 1,500 people, more than 2/3 of passengers and crew, were killed, resulting in one of the worst naval disasters in human history. But what if it wasn't an accident? There is a theory that millionaire banker J.P. Morgan plotted the sinking of the Titanic to kill off rival millionaires. This theory is pretty far-fetched, but not entirely impossible. Strauss, Astor, and Guggenheim were supposedly in opposition of the creation of the Federal Reserve.